This is Small Business Big World, our weekly podcast prepared by the team at Paper Trails. Owning and running a small business is hard. Each week, we'll dive into the challenges, headaches, trends, fun, and excitement of running a small business. After all, small businesses are the heartbeat of America, and our team is here to keep them beating.
The following is not considered legal advice or counsel. Please seek legal advice prior to making any decisions. Securities and investment advisory services offered through Osaic Wealth, Inc. member FINRA, SIPC. Osaic Wealth is separately owned, and other entities and/or marketing names. Products or services referenced here are independent of Osaic Wealth. Insurance offered through BGA Retirement Advisors.
Welcome to Small Business Big World, our weekly podcast where we talk about all things small business. So today, my guest is Josh Chase from BGA Financial. Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, Chris.
How are you? So, we talk a lot about getting ready for retirement, but today we're going to talk about the emotional side of getting ready for retirement, right? That's a big piece.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the financial piece of retirement is covered by a lot of people, and people know how important it is to make sure you have enough money for retirement. But I think that emotional side of retirement is not talked about enough.
Right. So that's what we're going to talk about today. But before we get into that, don't forget, like, follow, share, rate, review, subscribe. We are everywhere you get your podcast. We certainly appreciate any ratings you can give us. That helps us grow as well. If you ever have a question for us or any of our guests, you can email us at podcast@papertrails.com. So let's talk, let's start from the beginning, the financial piece of that, right? We all, since we first got our jobs, even sometimes before that, we're taught, start saving early for retirement, right? You're a financial advisor. What are you working with clients on that financial piece in that realm?
Yeah, so you're right. People, talk about saving money from the first nickel you earn when you're however old you are. People are regularly talking to you about the importance of saving money for the future. And people, when they're closer to retirement, it's easy to think about retirement because you can almost see it there. It's difficult to talk to someone in their teens, 20s, 30s, even 40s about retirement, but it's important, and saving for retirement is important. And that's something I regularly do with folks, help them understand the importance of saving for that point of retirement. And it's funny, I often get questions from people. They say, hey, Josh, when can I retire? And I always say, half kidding, but half serious. I'm like, you can retire anytime you want. I mean, you literally can walk out the door right now and tell the boss you're not coming back. Anybody can do that at any time, at any age. The real question is, where's the money going to come from for you to do the things that you need to do and want to do? So that's sort of the financial side of it. But the things, obviously, you need money to do those things that you need to do. You got to pay your bills, put food on the table. But what about the things you want to do? That's obviously sometimes money's important for that, but that's when you start talking into the emotional side of things. What is it that you do want to do in retirement?
Right. We work with a lot of small businesses, as you do, and one of our clients last year came to us, approaching the retirement age. Blue collar. He's auto mechanic, runs a great business. And he's like, gosh, I really didn't start thinking about, I just thought I was going to work forever, right? In my late 50s. And, now I need some help. I need to talk to somebody about, the financial piece of it. Because, a lot of small business owners also think, gosh, my business is my retirement.
Right.
In one way, whether
Right.
I'm going to work forever or, or I'm going to sell it or whatever. How do you see a lot of clients like that too, that are behind the eight ball or, getting ready for, or don't think about it till it's too late, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And you hit the nail on the head with small businesses, and any small business owner knows this. They often put their life into that small business. And sometimes, either appropriately or inappropriately, they might think, this is my retirement. I'm going to cash out or cash in, however you want to say it, someday, and that's going to be what it is, how I'm going to fund my retirement, or I'm going to do this forever, right? That's often what people think. But I think those, and also when you talk about like the identity, what's somebody's identity? I see a lot of people struggle when they retire, when they stop working. They're trying to find what it is that their purpose is moving forward. And a lot of people have work or their careers as their identity. That's who you are. I mean, think about any time you go to like a cocktail party or a networking event. What's the first thing you ask someone? What do you do? It's not who are you, it's what do you do? It's like, oh, I'm an engineer, I'm an architect, I'm a doctor, I'm a teacher.
It'd be great if you had something exciting other than, hey, I do payroll, right?
Right.
Finding that purpose,
Yeah.
right? That's the whole idea.
Yeah, but so right or wrong, that's often people's identity. And small business owners who probably, I don't want to say necessarily more than others, but that's really, that's been a passion for them for their entire lives. So to be able to just sort of walk away from that, I think is really difficult emotionally for folks. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely. And we talked earlier just kind of about the different stages of life, and that's really interesting to me because I never thought about it that way. But what are you seeing as you're working with clients and through their stages of the emotional point of life, right?
Yeah, yeah. So if you think about life in different phases, it's most of it's scripted. When somebody's born up until, I don't know, age 18, 20, it's a very scripted life. It's okay. You're a child. You learn how to walk and talk and eat. And you go to school because you're supposed to. When you go to high school and maybe prepare for college, and it's pretty scripted. Everybody knows sort of intuitively what it is that you're supposed to do. People sort of know how to raise kids. And then when you get in your 20s and 30s, it's like, okay, now I'm learning how to be an adult. Maybe you go to college, maybe you buy a house, get your first job, and say, okay, now I know what I'm supposed to do. And then it's very scripted. And then maybe you get married and you have kids and you build your career, and it's okay, that's very scripted. But the final phase, whatever you want to call it, however you want to look at it, which is sort of post-career, post-kids, empty nester, now it's like, okay, what do I do? I've retired. There's no handbook on how to live during your retirement years, what it is you're supposed to do, what it is that your purpose is, what brings you joy. And I see a lot of people struggle with that.
Yeah. And so I know you spend a lot of time thinking about that. What are you doing to help your clients as you're working with them over the years, right? Through the different phases of life? How are you helping them, through that, coaching them and so forth?
Yeah, so obviously the financial side of things is important, making sure you reduce your debt and save appropriately in the different buckets, however that might work for each individual. But it's also just when folks look forward to retirement, when you see that, whether it's 5, 15, 20 years ahead, start thinking about other things. What things beyond your career or your family bring you joy that you like to do, or that you spend time with, and especially with couples, Chris, I see. I often have people come sit down with me, and I'll ask like a basic question, like, hey, what do the two of you want to do in retirement? And I'll hear completely different answers. People have been married 20, 30, 40 years, and they sort of look at each other like, really? I didn't know you wanted to do that. And, not that I'm a counselor or anything. I'm like, hey, maybe the two of you might want to sort of talk about what it is that you want to do in retirement and have like an idea well in advance of getting to that point. So from the financial side of things, sometimes I've had people sit down with me and they say, okay, Josh, I'm 64 and a half years old and I'm going to retire in 6 months at 66. Here's my stuff. What can we do? And sometimes I'll do calculations and I'll look, and my inside voice says, well, you need to get in a time machine and go back 10 or 15 years and we'll start this conversation over again, because what it is that you want to do and the amount of money you have is not aligned. So from a financial standpoint, I tell people you really need to start thinking about this stuff in advance of that point of retirement. From a non-financial standpoint, it's the same thing. It's like, okay, what do you think that you want to do? And if you're single, fine. If you're a couple, fine. But figure out those things that you want to do and how you might approach that in retirement to bring you that sort of purpose beyond what it was during your working years.
Are you seeing people slow down or semi-retire or take a minute to say, gosh, I really enjoy X, right? This is my true passion, before they retire? You seeing people, I'm a long ways for retirement, so I haven't started thinking about that, but so I'm trying to get myself ready, right? Gosh, I got a few more years, but how are people getting themselves emotionally prepared? When I know you're really big on supporting those clients, so how are people doing that?
I don't see it enough, and that's why I enjoy actually talking about this and talking with folks. And I think people focus a lot on the financial side of retirement, which is an important thing to do. But I think I'm not seeing people do enough, talking enough about that, Chris, unfortunately. So, I again, going back to what I was saying, I just think people need to think about the emotional side of it, need to think about what brings them happiness, and just have those conversations, whether it's with an advisor, friend, neighbors, their spouse, whoever, just to sort of identify how emotionally you can approach retirement successfully.
So another piece of the emotions, and I have this emotion at 35 years old, is I'm not going to have enough to retire, right? That's something that I know my father, who's much closer to retirement than I am, I don't have enough to retire, right? He does, and I will, and we'll all be fine, and we'll figure it all out. But how are people managing that emotion and kind of going through that phase of it? And are you saying, well, gosh, here's the plan, right? This is what we can project out. We can't predict the future, but we think you're going to be fine, or you need to change your strategy, right? Are you those conversations that you're having with people as well? I mean,
yeah. So, going back to when you earn your first nickel, however old you were, you've spent your entire life earning and saving money. And again, that's scripted. Everyone sort of knows how to do that. People are preaching to one another constantly about how to save money and the different sources of savings, accounts, etc. But not enough people also talk about when you stop earning money. If you picture yourself as a money-making machine, truly you are a machine that makes money. That's your ability to earn income. And when you stop doing that at age 65, sometimes age 70, when people have been working often for 45 or 50 years, every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, they wake up, they go to work, and they get a paycheck at the end of the week, and then all of a sudden to say, okay, don't do that anymore. People just don't know how to do that. They don't understand that, and that emotional toll is like, I have no idea how to stop doing this. And the idea of no longer putting money into a bucket really scares me. And now you're telling me I have to start taking money out of this bucket, and there might be a bottom of that bucket. Right. That's kind of scary for a lot of people.
Right. Absolutely. That's what I think about. Right. You said when we talked a couple weeks ago that, when your clients retire that, following Monday, you call them and say, hey, what's going on? How are you feeling?
I love that. Sort of what I was just talking about, the idea of like working for 40 or 50 years, and then one day you go to work, and then the next day, all of a sudden you wake up literally with nothing to do. And it's fascinating, but I think that's also what scares a lot of people. I've seen so many people, they rush towards that. They're like, I can't wait for that day. And other people, I think it really, truly scares them. But I've had several conversations with people that tell me they're going to retire. And it's weird. I kind of get excited. I'm like, oh my gosh, can I call you? Like, they're like, yeah, sure, absolutely. And there's one gentleman that I work with, and every time I call him, I'm like, so what's on the agenda today? What are you doing? And he's great, and he's very content, and I love the word contentment. He's very content, and he's like, yeah, you know what? He goes, I just think I'm going to go trim a couple of trees. I'm going to drive my tractor out back a little bit. And I absolutely love it. And I read years ago, this was a really interesting story. There was some editor or something in a big newspaper out west in California or something like that, and so his identity was working for this newspaper for 30 or 40 years. That's what he did his entire life. And he said the greatest and the worst day of his life was when he woke up the day after retirement and went to his doorstep, and the newspaper was there. And what he said was, he realized, he's like, wait a second, they're going to do just fine without me. And he thought, I'm this big shot, and I helped build this newspaper, and they can't operate without me. And then the next day, the newspaper showed up, and he's like, wow. He goes, I'm just another number. I'm just another person. They don't necessarily need me. He was really excited to reach retirement, but realized at that same time that, oh my gosh, my identity was sort of all wrong. Who I saw myself is not necessarily the way other people saw me.
That's interesting. I think, we have our identity, right? Which for me is, I'm guilty of it, right? My business. I work too much. I enjoy it, of course, but, I don't take the time to enjoy other things sometimes. And I think that's, things we all need to stop and think about and say, gosh, we need to stop and smell the roses and realize that, we do have a finite time. The bucket's going to come to, it's going to get empty at some point. You might as well enjoy it while it's full, right?
Yeah.
I think that's something that we all probably should take a step back and think about.
But. Yeah, absolutely. And I, with respect to people reaching retirement, I also, I love the way people approach retirement and think about that actual day. We were talking a moment ago about like when I get excited to hear people like, what are you doing on that last day? Are you having a party? Like it's that sort of finality, or that it's that final moment of like, I've been doing this all my life, and like how does it end? And there's really no other thing in life where I can see where it's just you're preparing for something, this sort of final moment where you're telling someone, a group, a career, or something where I'm done with it. And you've been doing it for 30, 40, 50 years. And to see what that moment is going to be like. A few years back, I was working with this woman. She was fantastic. And she was a receptionist at this organization, and she announced her retirement. She was working there for 30 years, something like that. And she said, all right, the time is right for me to retire. And she didn't know the actual day, but she prearranged with the boss and said, hey, within the next couple of months, I'm going to retire. I don't know the exact date, but she said, I know that I'm going to be driving home one day, and I'm going to know that's my last day, and I'm just not going to show up the next day. And she said to the boss,
the employer in me is cringing right now, by the way. Just
well, she said to the boss, out of respect for you, I don't want you guys to worry about me, and I don't want to just, stiff you guys and not have somebody. And the boss said, I 100% understand. You do what you need to do. We'll be prepared for whenever that day is. And then sure enough, she was just driving home one day, and I talked to her after this, and she looked at me and she goes, yeah, I was just driving home one day, and she looked around, she goes, yep, today's the day. And she just didn't show up the next day. I was just like, wow. And I was just like so fascinated by that. I'm like, how do you do that? That's just so cool.
It's cool and, again, frightening as an employer, right? That's succession planning. That's a whole different episode. But, that's certainly something that small business owners need to think about. But
well, I think for her too, I think part of it was the fear of facing those emotions and having people hug her and giving her a cake and throwing a party and giving her cards. I think part of it was she didn't want to face that sort of...
She didn't want the finality.
She didn't. That's right. That's right. Exactly right.
Interesting. What have you seen in your clients, that has fulfilled them? What have you seen them doing? What are their goals after, day one of retirement, their next wave of life?
Yeah.
Anything really cool you've seen?
Well, I think for small business owners of small businesses, I think for them, the big thing, and as you know, when you're very passionate about what you do, it's hard to let that go sometimes. But when they have somebody to mentor, somebody to pass on that wisdom, pass on that business, pass on that knowledge, all of that information, I've seen that gives people a lot of satisfaction. So that, and whether it's like handing off a baton and allowing someone to continue your legacy, what it is that you've done. So for small business owners, that's definitely something that's brought them happiness and passion and makes it easier for them to sort of reach that retirement phase, sort of phasing out of retirement rather than that final moment. You see that like, okay, I'm here on a Friday and I'm not going to show up on a Monday is one thing. But I think we're seeing a lot more of that sort of phasing into retirement or phasing out of your career.
Right.
I was working 5 days a week. Now it's 4. Now it's 3. Especially, I think, with the way unemployment rates are, and I think businesses are very much willing to work with people that are good quality employees to
Absolutely.
say, hey, we know you're at that point of retirement. We'll work with you. We'll be flexible and allow you to sort of phase into retirement, which will help you emotionally deal with, okay, I'm working 5 days a week now, I'm working 4 days a week. And it has that extra day to allow you to find that fulfillment and that purpose outside of your career, and then maybe down to 3 days an event, rather than working on a Friday, waking up on a Monday with nothing to do.
Right. And that's a perfect example. We're doing that here internally. I have an employee, longtime employee, wonderful. About 2 years ago, we kind of transitioned her into her retirement role, something that's a little less stressful, senior level kind of position, not the monotony, the craziness of the day to day. And now we're starting to have that conversation of like, okay, how much longer do you really want to work? And do you want to go to a couple of days a week before you so you can start to phase in, which I think works great for me as an employer. And I think certainly for certain folks, it might work, as an employee as well.
Yeah. It's hard enough for businesses to find quality employees right now. So when you have one, you don't want to lose them.
Absolutely.
But I also see a lot of business owners take a certain amount of pride in having somebody retire from their organization. I see that a lot with small businesses. They're incredibly proud, especially some newer businesses where they have like the first person to retire from their company. Business owners take a lot of pride in that. Yeah. They're like, you know what? I was able to give somebody a career. I was able to give them the ability to phase into retirement with some dignity. And it's pretty neat to see.
That's really cool. So I think retirement's a long way for a lot of us. We're getting ready to, we're getting ready early to retire. And then, it comes, and now we're there. And, I think I have to find my purpose when we get there. I don't know if you started thinking about yours. I think that's kind of the summary of, today is really just getting yourself emotionally ready, right? That's the big piece of it. And certainly we don't want to see the people that just go home and sit in the chair for 20 years and then go to the box, right?
Right.
That's terrible. So, well, good. Well, just a reminder, our disclaimer, Josh is a financial advisor. Everything that we've talked about today is not advice or counsel. Please continue to seek your own advice and counsel from your trusted advisors as well. So that is wonderful. Thank you so much, Josh. Really appreciate it. Before we head off, don't forget, please like, follow, share, rate, review. We really appreciate all those reviews. That helps us grow. And again, if you have any questions for us, you can reach out to us at podcast@papertrails.com. Josh, how do folks get in touch with you if they want more advice, or they want to sit in your chaise lounge
thank
in the
you.
office?
Yeah, absolutely. Email address is jchase@bgaretirement.com. Telephone 207-233-8237, or visit our website, www.bgafinancial.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Thanks very much, Josh. And thanks, everyone, for listening today. And we'll see you very soon. Thanks for listening to this week's episode of A Small Business, Big World. This podcast is a production of Paper Trails. We are a payroll and HR company based in Kennebunk, Maine, and we serve small and mid-sized businesses across New England and the country. If you found this podcast helpful, don't forget to follow us at @PaperTrailsPayroll across all social media platforms, and check us out at papertrails.com for more information. As a reminder, the views, opinions, and thoughts expressed are the hosts and guests alone. The material presented in this podcast is for general information purposes only and should not be considered legal or financial advice. By inviting this guest to our podcast, Paper Trails does not imply endorsement of or opposition to any specific individual, organization, product, or service.